Nobody's inside. I checked. You checked the basement? There isn't one. It's a crawl space.
There's a bulkhead door under that maple.
Screwed shut since April.
Then why's your tank sweating?
It rained.
It isn't wet. It's frosted. There's a white band around it about knee-high.
It's an old tank.
Sir, whose house is this?
Gray Truitt. He left for Arkansas this morning.
That his truck in the garage?
He took the church van. He does that.
The captain of the county search team was 44 years old. He had been on shift for 6 hours. He had 31 addresses left on his board and 1 working generator. He walked over to the tank anyway, because 22 years in a fire service teaches a man to put his hand on things. He laid his palm flat on the steel below the white band. Above the band it was cold, the way wet steel is cold in the rain. Below it, the metal was a different cold, a hard line across his hand, and he could feel exactly where it started. "Old tank," the man said again. 12 feet under that yard, a man with a broken leg lay on concrete with his coat over his head. He had been hollering for 31 minutes. Hey, I'm on the stairs. Somebody, my leg's broke, I'm on the stairs." Nothing came back down. There was rain in the gap, a heater going, and overhead the sound of boots on gravel. Up in the yard, the captain took his hand off the steel and looked at it. Then he chalked an X on the doorframe, wrote a 0 inside it, and went to the next house. It was 11 minutes past 9 at night on the 6th of November, and 71 houses on Culver Road had come apart in 90 seconds. At 22 minutes to 10, the man who said nobody was inside got back in a tow truck and pulled up a number on his phone. He let it ring once, then he set it face down on the seat. Neely Truitt called him back a minute later. "Bo, where's Dad?" "Arkansas. He texted me at 6. He doesn't text. He did today." "Bo, Culver Road is on my board as a total loss. Is anybody in that house?" "Nobody's inside. I already checked." Gray Truitt was 53 years old and he ran 1 truck, Truitt Recovery, out of Tanner Fork, Missouri. 1 wrecker, a repainted boom, a magnetic sign on the door, and a slot on the Verlin County Sheriff's rotation. That meant a phone rang 3 or 4 nights a week at an hour when nobody wants to be awake, and he got up and went. He did it for 21 years. He did it the year his wife was dying, and the winter after she died. Because at the far end of the call, somebody was standing on his shoulder in the dark. He had a line about it his children could say in their sleep. "The call comes when it comes. You go anyway." At 6:40 that evening, he was under a hatchback in a ditch on Highway 12, cutting a seatbelt off a woman who kept apologizing. "I am so sorry about your night." "Ma'am, this is my night." At 7:58, the sky over Verlin County did the thing that people describe afterward in exactly the same 8 words. The house on Culver Road folded on the west side. It put its first floor down on the basement stairs. Gray was down there to shut the water main. A section of floor joist came through and caught his left leg below the knee. It held him 16 minutes while the rain came in. He got loose at 8:14. He could not stand. He could crawl. There was a gas heater on the north wall with a pilot and a chain pull, put in the year Neely was born. Gray reached it at 8:19 with a lighter he kept for road flares. He lit it. That is the part people have trouble with. Not the storm, the lighter. A man with a shattered leg in the dark and 39-degree rain under a collapsed house reached up and lit a heater. Then he lay back down and waited, believing with no evidence at all that somebody was coming. At 8:40, he heard boots on the bulkhead door above him. He hollered until his throat tore, that he was on the 3rd stair from the bottom, that his leg was broke, that somebody get the fire department. A voice said 2 words through 3 inches of steel and wood. "Hang on." Then Gray Truitt heard a drill. 3 times, a short one, a long one, a short one, and each time the wood took it with that sound wood makes. And here's the thing he has never said out loud without stopping in the middle. For about 4 seconds, in the dark under his own house, Gray Truitt felt relief. He thought somebody was strapping the door down against the wind. He thought a man had come and was making it safe before he went for help. Then the boots went away across the yard, and they did not come back for 9 hours. Outside, on a pad 40 feet from the house, a white band began to creep down the side of a 500-gallon tank. It moved for 9 hours and 3 minutes. Neely Truitt was 24. She worked nights at Verlin County Emergency Communications, which is a room with no windows, 8 consoles, and a coffee maker that has not worked since spring. On the 6th, she was on Console 4. Console 4 had the grain elevator. The elevator on Depot Street took a direct hit at 8:02, with 11 people inside doing a hopper repair. That is where the ambulances went and the helicopter. Neely sat in that chair 6 hours and 20 minutes, moving units around a county that had lost 40% of its road signs. She was good at it. That is the tragedy of it. Culver Road went to Console 2. A floater took it. At 11 minutes past 9, the floater cleared 11:30 Culver on the captain's radio call. She typed the code for structure searched and unoccupied and went to the next of 71. Neely never saw it. She was 11 miles away with a headset on. Her brother Wyatt was 12. He was at a livestock judging clinic 2 counties over, in a gymnasium with 60 other children and no service on anybody's phone. The activity bus got him to their Aunt Charla's at 12:50 in the morning. He did not sleep. At 22 minutes past 5, the cold line on the tank stopped moving down. At 5:50 in the morning, Wyatt Truitt called his sister. "Neely, are you okay? Why are you up?" "Cellar door's shut." "What?" "Our cellar door, the bulkhead." "Wyatt, the whole house came down." "I know. Aunt Charlotte drove past on the way back and I was at the window." He was talking fast, the way a child does who expects to be sent to bed. "The door's shut." "Okay." "Tuesday I left it open. I got my helmet out and I left it leaning and Dad hollered at me about it." "He hollers at you about that every time?" "He said a door that heavy takes a finger off." Wyatt went quiet for a second. "So I know it was open, because I got yelled at." Neely Truitt was standing in a break room with a paper cup in her hand. "Say that again." "I got yelled at Tuesday, so it was open Tuesday. And last night it was shut." "Yeah." "Nobody weighs a 12-year-old. That rule is so old it does not need writing down. A room of grown people will spend a week on a folder and never turn to the one person who actually opened the door." At 6:05, Neely pulled the incident log for her own street. She read it twice. Then she went out to her car without her jacket. The bulkhead door was under the maple on the north side. It was closed, and it had 3 screws in it. Star drive deck screws, 3 inches, head still bright. Neely put her thumb on one, and it came away with sawdust. The sawdust was dry. A scrap of plywood leaned over the top of the frame. It had kept 11 hours of rain off a job somebody did in a hurry. She had no drill. She had a tire iron in the trunk, and she was her father's daughter. The first screw came out clean. She got the flat end under the head and rolled her weight onto it. It stripped up out of the wet wood with the sound a nail makes leaving a board. The second one turned in the hole and would not come. She quit on it and went after the third. When the third gave, nothing was holding the top edge. It came at her. The plywood slid off and went down flat in the mud. 90 pounds of steel and wood swung out and caught Neely Truitt's left hand against the frame. She did not scream. She has been asked about that more than once and cannot explain it. She got her hand out. 2 fingers on it do not straighten anymore. Her father had hollered at a 12-year-old about that exact door 4 days earlier. He had used the word finger. He had been right. The door came off the frame at 22 minutes to 7. Propane came up the stairwell at her and wet drywall and something else under it. She went down into the dark on her heels with her hand against her chest. The heater on the north wall was cold. She put her good hand flat on it going by, the way her father puts a hand on things. There was not 1 degree of warmth left in that steel. She did not understand what that meant for 6 more days. Her father was on the concrete 8 feet from it, on his side, with his coat pulled over his head to hold the heat in. That is a thing you learn in a truck. "Dad." "Nothing." "Dad?" His hand moved, 2 fingers. Neely got down on the floor beside him and put her face next to his face. "I'm here. I'm right here." "You came." It took him a long time. "I came." "Told him," Gray Truitt said. "Told him where I was." "Told who?" "Boots on the door." "Dad." "Told who?" But he was gone again, and the county's second ambulance was 14 minutes out. Neely lay on that floor with her father's head in her lap and did not think about that sentence for 4 more days. His core temperature at intake was 93 degrees. He had a shattered left tibia and a compartment pressure that put him in surgery in 40 minutes. They opened his lower leg on both sides to save it. He kept it. "Another 2 hours, the nurse said in the hallway, and this is a different conversation. 2 hours. I'm telling you now because families ask later, and nobody wants to say it then. Bo Hollister got to the hospital at 9:20 with a bag of clothes. He cried in the hallway in front of 2 nurses and Aunt Charla. I checked. Neely, I stood in that yard and I called his name. I know. There was a woman in the road with a baby. There were people screaming on Depot. I know. I looked at that house and there was nothing standing. I made a call and I made the wrong one. Bo, that's mine now. That's mine for good. Nobody's blaming you. She meant it. On the morning of the 7th of November, Neely Truitt meant every word of it. Bo Hollister was 33, and he had been part of Truitt Recovery 2 years and 4 months. He came in as a driver and bought in with $9,000 and a promise. Gray liked him for the reason Gray liked most people, which was that he showed up. He was good on a winch line and good with the customers who cry. He was engaged to Gray's daughter. The wedding was the 6th of December. He lived in the back bedroom on Culver Road, where the folding chairs for the reception were stacked against a wall. He was, in every sense the word has, inside. Neely called the search team captain on the 9th. He took a while coming to the phone. Ma'am, you cleared my father's house. I did. On a family member's word. On a family member's word, with 31 addresses left and 71 total. His voice did not defend itself. Ma'am, I could have popped that door. It's 3 feet of bulkhead, 2 minutes. Then why didn't you? I've run that math every night since and it still comes out the same and I still can't sleep. He stopped. There's one thing I'd tell you if you were my daughter. Tell me. I put my hand on that tank, the captain said, and I let a man stand there and tell me it was an old tank. Neely got 9 minutes with Detective Ansel Crow on the 10th. Tell me what to charge. He told them the house was empty. Panic isn't a charge. Being wrong isn't a charge. Crow did not blink. He walks unless somebody hands me an act, not a failure. An act, something the man did with his hands. Gray Truitt woke up properly on the 10th. The first thing he did was ask about somebody else. Elevator. What? Depot Street. How many? Dad, you have been out 3 days. How many? 9 hurt, 2 bad. Nobody died. He shut his eyes. That is the only time in this account that Gray Truitt is recorded as having cried. Good. You want to hear about you? Not particularly. They opened your leg on both sides. You were 93 degrees. I've been colder. You were 9 hours down there. He did not answer that. He turned his head toward the window instead, and he asked a question that he did not understand the weight of. Where were you that night? Console 4, she said. Grain elevator. Good, Gray Truitt said, and went back to sleep. Wyatt came to the room that afternoon and stood at the end of the bed. You mad about the door? What door? The cellar door. Tuesday. Come here. Gray got his hand off the blanket about 4 inches, which was all he had. Say what you told your sister. That I left it open. That it was shut Sunday night. Then you go on telling people that, every time, even when their face gets that look. What look? The one where they've already decided you're 12. On the 11th, Bo Hollister spent 6 hours at the lot with a wheelbarrow. He pulled the wedding album out of the stairwell. He found a coffee can of arrowheads Wyatt had collected. He found Gray's wife's church shoes, both of them, and lined them up on the tailgate. It was down in the stairwell. I've been in there since 7. Bo, the fire department has that lot taped. Then they can write me a ticket. He said it lightly, with mud to the elbow. I wasn't going to let a bulldozer take her shoes. Neely Truitt stood in a wrecked yard that day and thought with her whole chest that she was engaged to a good man. That is not a stupid thought. Write it down. It is the thought this whole thing runs on. Ida Shockley came out on the 12th to make the tank safe. Crow came because Neely would not stop calling him. Ida was 63. She had driven route for the Verlin Farmers Propane Cooperative since the year the highway went through, and she carried route cards in her own handwriting. She was crouched at the pad when they got there, and she did not stand up. You the daughter? Yes. I hauled to this tank 9 years. I'm sorry. She put her pen against the riser. Now come look at this before this gentleman starts telling me what's a coincidence. I haven't said a word, Crow said. You will. What am I looking at? Service valves closed. The fire department closed the one at the house. That's a house valve. This is the tank valve. It's 40 feet and a different hand. Ida tapped it. It's closed hand tight and then a quarter past hand tight. That's what a person does when they're in a hurry or they're mad. That's a feeling. That's 30 years. Feelings don't survive a defense attorney, ma'am. Neither do detectives who won't kneel down. She moved the pen down. This isn't. There's a wire seal here that has been off and put back on. How would you know that? Because I'm the one who puts them on and I put a twist in mine. That is not my twist. Crow crouched down beside her, which is more than most detectives would have done. Ms. Shockley, anybody could say that. They could. That's why I'm not asking you to take my word. Ada stood up with the sound a 63-year-old knee makes. Now look at the door. She walked them to the bulkhead and pointed at the 3 bright screw heads with the pen. Rained 11 hours that night. Rained hard. That's dry sawdust under that frame. Meaning whoever drove those screws laid that plywood over the top the same minute he finished. Ada let it sit. Detective, a man does not put a rain cover on a door he intends to open again. Crow looked at the plywood for a long time. Ms. Truitt, he said, where's the nearest thing in this yard that keeps a record? Ida Shockley answered before Neely could. On the lid of the tank, she said. The cooperative office had a metal desk and a seed calendar. We call it the meter, Ida said. It isn't one. It's a monitor. Sits on the lid size of a lunchbox. Sending what? A percent of liquid and the skin temperature of the tank. Every hour, all year. Only on the hour? Only on the hour, unless the flow quits. Meaning what? Meaning if a tank is feeding and then it stops feeding, that box fires a line right then, to the second. Ida hit print. The company put that in because they're scared of leaks, not because they're scared of anything happening to you. The printout was 4 pages of hourly rows, and it was the least dramatic object in this entire story. November 6th. 8 at night, tank at 61% holding. 9 at night, 61. 10, 61. It barely moved all night. A wall heater in a basement burns about 1/3 of a gallon an hour, and 1/3 of a gallon does not show up on a 500-gallon tank. The percent column is not the story. The temperature column is. Skin temperature falling every hour all night because a tank that is feeding pulls heat out of its own steel. 51, 48, 44, 41. November 7th, 5 in the morning, still falling. Then a line stamped between the hours at 22 minutes past 5 that said, flow interrupt. And after that, the temperature stopped falling. It sat flat for the rest of the page while the tank warmed back up in the rain. Neely put her hand flat on the paper and left it there. That's him, she said. That's my dad breathing. That's an appliance, Crow said. That's my dad. He crawled to it, and he lit it, and he stayed alive on it. And it wrote it down every hour, and nobody read it. That's the fingerprint, Ida said. A tank that's feeding gets colder. A tank that quits gets warmer. That column is a thermometer telling you the exact minute a man stopped being kept alive. Tank read 60% when it quit, Ida said. Crow looked up. Say that plainer. It didn't run out. Ida put 2 fingers on the number. There are 300 gallons sitting out there, right now. This minute. That heater did not quit at 22 past 5 because it was empty. Then why did it quit? Because somebody put a hand on that valve. Could wind close a valve? That valve sits 22 inches off a slab behind a windbreak of cedars that are still standing, Ida said. Go count the cedars. Nobody in that office said anything for a moment. Then somebody stood right there, Crow said, at 22 after 5 in the morning. On the 13th, Bo Hollister spent part of the afternoon alone in the shop. There's a gray file cabinet against the back wall. Gray Truitt has kept it locked since his wife died, out of a habit that had nothing to do with security. Bo tried 3 keys off the board. None of them fit. Yet. Denise Kolb examined special investigations for the carrier that wrote Truitt Recovery's policies. She drove up on the 18th because a claim file had tripped a flag. The flag was not a death claim. There was no death. The flag was a phone call. Your business has a buy-sell agreement, she told Gray Truitt in a hospital room with his leg in a frame and his daughter at the window. 2 owners, cross-purchase, funded by Key Person Life. I signed it. I know what it does. Tell me what you think it does. One of us dies. The policy pays the one that's left, and he buys out the estate at the agreed number. Exactly right. Your face amount is $650,000. She turned to Paige. There is an accidental death rider that doubles it for an external accidental cause, whether qualifies. I priced that rider myself. On the 24th of October, Mr. Hollister called our service line. He was on for 14 minutes. About what? He asked whether a declared natural disaster counts as an accidental cause. He asked how long a payout takes when a body is recovered from a structure. Neely turned around from the window. The 24th? Yes. The storm was the 6th of November. That's 13 days. It is. Then he didn't know, Gray said. Nobody knows about a tornado 13 days out. Mr. Truitt, I want to read you one line, and then I want you to tell me that again. Denise Kolb took a printout off her lap. On the 24th of October, the Storm Prediction Center put Verlin County inside a risk area on its Day 6 outlook. That post at 4 in the morning. Your partner called us at 1:40 that afternoon. The room was quiet enough to hear the frame on Gray's leg tick as he shifted. He wasn't waiting for a tornado, Kolb said. He was reading a forecast the way another man reads a price list. Crow was in the room, and he opened a folder on the bed rail. There's a second thing, he said. Your rotation contract requires a GPS unit on the wrecker. County can pull position on demand. $39 a month, Gray said. I have complained about it every month for 4 years. It logs every 60 seconds and keeps 90 days. Crow ran his pen down the page. 8:37 on the 6th, your address. Gray Truitt lifted his head off the pillow. Say that again. 8:37 at night, your address. Crow kept his finger on the line. And it does not move until 9:50. That's an hour and 13 minutes. That is an hour and 13 minutes. The search crew came at 9:06. They did. So he was standing in that yard the whole time they were in it. 12 feet from the door, Crow said. Then 9:41 is wrong. It's 9:50, and he goes to the shelter. 12:20, the shop. He sleeps at the shop. So I gathered. 4:58 in the morning, the truck leaves the shop. Neely came away from the window. Where does it go? Crow turned the page around and set the pen on a set of coordinates. It sits at the north edge of your tank pad. For how long? 5:19 to 5:26, 7 minutes. The forgery turned up on the 20th because Denise Kolb pulled the underwriting file. It was in there the way a nail is in a tire. A continuity amendment to the buy-sell agreement dated the 25th of October, 2 pages. It named Bo Hollister sole successor operator of Truitt Recovery. It assigned the sheriff's rotation slot to him on the death of Gray Truitt, or on the incapacity of Gray Truitt. Somebody had typed those last 4 words in. No purchase price, no valuation, no clause for the children. It carried Gray Truitt's signature and a notary stamp from a bank branch in Tanner Fork, taken at 2:10 in the afternoon. Gray looked at it for about 4 seconds. That's my name. Is it your signature? It's my name, he said again. I have signed that name 40,000 times, and I have never put a loop on the Y. Read the second clause, Kolb said. Death or incapacity. That word is not in the original agreement. Somebody added it. Gray Truitt set the paper down on the blanket. He didn't need me dead, he said. He needed you dead for the rider. He needed you incapacitated for the company. Kolb closed her folder. One of those he could arrange in a storm. The other one he could arrange with a pen. At 2:10 that afternoon, the GPS unit had Gray on the shoulder of Highway 12, hooking a horse trailer with a broken axle. That is 33 miles from the bank. There were 3 witnesses and a receipt. The man was not in the building. He was never in the building. The teller who notarized it had been at that branch 6 years. She cried for 20 minutes in the interview room before she said the sentence. He told me his father-in-law was out in the truck with a bad back. And he asked if I'd just walk it out to the lot. Did you? No. She put both hands over her mouth for a second. I stamped it at my window. Why? There were 4 people in line. That is how it happens, not with a master criminal. With 4 people in line and a man in a hurry. On the night of the 21st, a man went out to the wrecked lot alone with a flashlight in his teeth. He knelt at the concrete pad. He put the wire seal back on the valve. He got it wrong twice. Both times he noticed, and both times he started over. Gray Truitt made his daughter drive him to the shop on the 22nd. He was in a wheelchair. He told her he only wanted to look at the man one time. Everybody involved has since agreed this was the mistake. Bo was in the bay with the hood up on the service pickup. He wiped his hands when they came in, and he smiled, and the smile was the worst part. Hey, they let you out? Day pass. That's good. That's real good. He came around the fender and crouched down so he was not looking down at a man in a chair. Decent men do that. You look better than Thursday. You were at the hospital Thursday? End of the hall. Didn't want to crowd you. Neely felt something go through her ribs and did not show it. Bo, Gray said, why'd you drive out here at 5 in the morning on the 7th? Bo did not blink. He did not look away. He did the thing that is worse than either, which is that he thought about it. To see it in the light. It was dark at 5, and to be there when it got light. You sat at the propane pad 7 minutes. And Bo Hollister stopped wiping his hands. You've been in the truck data. The county's been in the truck data. He set the rag on the fender and squared it up with the edge. He looked at the floor of the bay a while. When he spoke, his voice was not a villain's voice. That is the part nobody understands until they have sat across from one. It was tired and reasonable, and it wanted them to see it his way. My father died on a rented backhoe in 1997, Bo said. The bucket came over on him. I was 12. I was the only one home.
Bo?
I was standing at the fence and I could see his arm. Stop. I sat on the tailgate of his truck for 40 minutes before I went in and called anybody. He picked the rag back up. I have never told one living person that.
Why tell us?
Because in March, the insurance came and my mother kept her house, and every man at that funeral shook my hand and said I was brave. He folded the rag in half. I did not do one single thing, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
You let him die.
That is not the same, and I have had 21 years to work out that it is not the same.
Then say the difference. There's no hands in it.
Bo Hollister hung the rag on the hook. Nobody has ever put a man in prison for standing still. If you have ever watched somebody excuse what they did by pointing at what they did not do, tell me in the comments, because the rest of this is yours. And then Gray Truitt, who had not raised his voice in 21 years of pulling people out of ditches, could not hold it. 3 screws, he said. The shop went quiet. I heard all 3. Neely got the chair turned around. Bo walked them out, held the door, lifted the footplate over the curb, and put a hand on Gray's shoulder. Take care of that leg, he said. The next night, the file cabinet stood open with all 4 drawers pulled. Behind the building, there was a burn barrel with paper ash in it, still warm at 6 in the morning. They lost the original of the partnership agreement and 2 years of route sheets. Detective Crow did not yell at Gray Truitt. He did something worse. He explained. I was going to charge the forgery on the 26th, he said. Now I can't, because I have to authenticate a copy instead of an original, and that takes a lab and a month. I know it. And when we get to the jury, his attorney stands up and says the father accused his client in a shop on the 22nd. Then every word out of this family is a man building a case. I know that too. Then why? Because he told me a story about a tailgate, Gray Truitt said, and I have a daughter. On the 19th, they walked Gray in the corridor for the first time. He made one length and had to sit down. Better than Monday, the therapist said. How long was it? You don't want to time it. At the far end of the hall, a man in a canvas work coat stood with his thumb on his phone screen. He did not come down the hall. He stood there through the whole length and then walked out to the lot. 91 seconds. He wrote it down. 9 days later, a lawyer would ask a judge whether a man who needs 91 seconds to cross a hallway can run a company. He would use the word incapacity 4 times. The prosecutor met them on the 25th and took 12 minutes, which is how you know it was bad. Forgery. I will file the day the lab clears the copy. That one I win. And the rest, Neely said. The rest is where I have to be honest with you. Go ahead. I have a valve that closed at 22 past 5. I have a truck 20 feet away for 7 minutes. I have a phone call to an insurer. On a day the weather service posted an outlook. He capped his pen. Every one of those is a brick and I do not have mortar. He came back and shut off my father's heat. That is what I believe. Believing is free. Then what does his lawyer say? That his client drove out at dawn to look at a wrecked house, smelled gas in a flattened structure, and closed a valve for safety. The prosecutor stood up, which is the single most reasonable thing a person can do at a wrecked house. That is the problem. And the tornado? He tells the jury he panicked at the tape. Half that jury has panicked at a tape. So what do you need? I need him to do it now, the prosecutor said. In the present tense, in front of somebody. He isn't going to. He will. They always want to do it twice. The prosecutor put his pen in his pocket. Standing still worked for him once. It is the only thing he knows. And if we're wrong, then a man in a boot cast takes a drive and comes home. They sat at the kitchen table at Aunt Charla's house that night, and Gray Truitt got the rest of it back. It came the way those things come, which is sideways. Neely had a butcher knife out, and she was cutting the string off a package, and the sound of it made him stop with his cup halfway up. Neely. What? He drilled. What? Before the crew came. I heard the door and I hollered up and he said, hang on. Gray set the cup down. His hand was not steady. Then he drilled 3 screws in it. Dad, and I want you to know something, and then I never want to say it again. He looked at the table, not at her. For about 4 seconds I was glad. Glad. I thought a man was strapping the door down so the wind wouldn't take it. I thought somebody had come and was making it safe. Gray Truitt put his hand flat on the butcher paper. I lay down there for 9 hours feeling grateful. Nobody at that table said anything for a while. Then Neely said the thing she had been carrying since the 7th. I was on console 4. I know that. The Culver went to console 2 at 6 minutes past 9, and I was 5 feet from her talking to a flight crew. Her voice was flat and awful. I have read every line of that log. At 11 past 9, a floater typed a code, and I never looked at the board. Neely, I have spent my whole life answering when other people's fathers were in trouble, and when it was mine, I was busy. Gray Truitt could not lean across the table that far, so he did not try. You want to know what I was doing at 9:11? No. I was on a stair in the dark thinking, she's at work. He said it like a load report, and I thought, good, because it meant you were not in this house. Dad, you keep in that chair is why your brother has a father. He tapped the table twice with 2 fingers. There were 11 people in that elevator. Every one of them is somebody's. You do not get to hold both ends of that. Neely Truitt cried at that table for about 2 minutes, which was the first time since the 6th of November. Then she went to bed, because she had a shift. Bo Hollister came to supper on Sunday and asked twice. Any of it coming back to him? Some days he knows what day it is, Neely said. That's rough. He passed the beans to Wyatt. Does he ever talk about that night? Wyatt Truitt looked at his plate. He says he doesn't remember, Wyatt said. He says he doesn't remember any of it. And Bo put his hand on the back of that child's neck, the way an uncle does, and said, that's a mercy then. Wyatt did not sleep. He stood in the kitchen doorway at 11 that night with his chin going. I had to lie to him. I know. He stood out in the lot with me 2 hours in July teaching me to back a trailer. He didn't get mad one time. Neely got up and put her arms around her brother in the doorway. That is the sound this story makes if you play it back. A 12-year-old crying in a doorway because the man who taught him to back a trailer was exactly what he was. Crow came to the house on the 30th and put both hands on the table before sitting. I want to say out loud what I'm agreeing to, so nobody tells me later they misunderstood. Go ahead, Gray said. You'll be in a field, on crutches, with a man who has already let you die once. Once and a half. That is not a joke I can laugh at. Crow sat. I'll be a quarter mile out. That is 4 minutes at best. How long is 9 hours? Crow let that go by. If he puts a hand on you, I'm not there. If he puts you in that truck, I'm behind it and not in front of it. He turned to Neely. And a console recording is a public record. Every word your father says out there belongs to the defense, too. I understand. Say it back to me. If Dad says one wrong thing, we hand it to them. That's right. Then I won't, Gray Truitt said. I have talked to people on the worst night of their lives for 21 years. I know how to keep my mouth mostly shut. You didn't on the 22nd. On the 22nd, I wanted him to know, Gray said. Tomorrow, I want him to talk. At the door, he said the thing he says. The call comes when it comes. You go anyway. At 9:50 on the morning of the 1st, Neely's supervisor came around the end of the console row. You can't hold a line open on a personal call. I know. It goes in your file. You're on the radio, and you cannot be on a phone. I know. The supervisor stood there for a second. Move to console 8, she said. Nobody sits at 8. Neely typed the login with her right hand. She has typed with her right hand since the 7th of November. Doing nothing is still a decision. It only feels like innocence because it does not leave a fingerprint. Bo pulled into the yard at 10:10 and came around to open the passenger door. He wore a canvas work coat that hung heavy on the left side. The lot at 10:20 was mud and slab and a chimney standing by itself. The contractor had taken the house down to the foundation. What was left of a 30-year life sat in 2 roll-off containers and a burn pile. Sticking up out of the near container were 40 white folding chairs, still stacked the way somebody had stacked them against a bedroom wall in October. Neither man said one word about them. Both men saw them. You want the chair? Crutches. It's soft out here. Then I'll be slow. They went across the lot together, Gray on aluminum crutches with a boot cast to the knee, Bo half a step behind with a hand out and not touching. That is exactly what a decent man does. That is the detail that keeps Neely Truitt awake. They stopped at the edge of the slab. Adjuster wants the tank photographed, Gray said. They won't close a file with the service off. I'll call the propane people. They're 3 days out. Then it waits 3 days. It's a valve, Bo. I don't know anything about that stuff. Sure you do. The wind came across the lot. Out on the county road, a truck downshifted. Go on and open it, Gray said. Quarter turn. Bo Hollister walked to the concrete pad. He stopped at the riser. Which one is it? Gray said. Bo did not answer with his mouth. He crouched, put his hand on the correct valve without reaching for the other one, and turned it counterclockwise a quarter turn. Then he stayed down there. That's the one, Gray Truitt said. Bo did not move. You told the detective you never touched this tank. You told him you didn't know where the shutoff was. Gray shifted his weight. It's in his notes. I've read them twice. You don't remember that night. I remember the drill. Bo stood up. You said hang on. Gray's voice did not rise. I was on the third stair with my leg opened up and you said, "Hang on." And then you drilled 3 screws in the only door I had. And I lay down there and I believed you for 9 hours. Gray. For 4 of those seconds I was grateful to you. Bo Hollister looked at the county road and at the burn pile and at the man in front of him. A man who could not run, could not stand without 2 sticks, had come out here alone. "You're recording?" "No." "Show me your phone." "It's in my coat. You're welcome to it." And Bo Hollister reached into his own coat and took out a valve wrench. He did not swing it. He never swings anything. That is the whole man. He walked over and laid the head of it across the top of Gray Truitt's left crutch, and he leaned on it. Not hard, about as hard as a hand on a shoulder. The crutch went down 2 inches into the mud, and Gray Truitt's whole weight went onto the other one, and his shoulders started to shake inside his coat. "There's no hands in it," Bo said quietly. "See?" He had not picked it up off the pad. It had ridden out from the shop under that coat for 9 days. Ever since a man in a wheelchair told him he had heard 3 screws. "You planned this," Bo said. "I sat behind a card table with a pencil. I owe $61,000 on a truck that isn't in my yard. I have a son in Sedalia I see twice a year." His voice broke for the first time all morning. "You never asked me one question about any of it." "You're right, I never did." "Then you don't get to stand there." "I'm not standing. I'm on 2 sticks in a mud lot, and I still came out here to hear you say it." Gray Truitt did not move a foot. "That's the whole difference, Bo. Not hands, showing up. Nobody's out here." "You are on with County Dispatch," Gray said. "My daughter has been on this call for 9 minutes. Bo stopped. "She's at Console 8. Everything at a Console Records." Gray still did not raise his voice. "She has you saying you don't know anything about that stuff, and she has you putting your hand on the right valve in front of a witness. Neely wouldn't. You have never once understood what my daughter would do." Bo Hollister stood there with the wrench in his hand and did his arithmetic out loud, which is what a man does when he is already lost. 9 minutes of what? Of me opening a valve for a sick man? Of you being asked which one it was? That's nothing. You told the detective you didn't know where it was. Then you put your hand on it in the dark of your own head without looking. Gray Truitt did not move. "That's not nothing, Bo. That's a memory." Over the rise came a white truck with a tank body and a cooperative logo, running its Monday route the way it had for 9 years. Ida Shockley took her foot off the accelerator. A quarter-mile behind her were 2 county cars with no lights on. Bo Hollister ran. He got the pickup turned around and made a 1.5 miles up Culver before the deputies boxed him at the low water bridge. He did not go easy. A deputy went to the clinic with a broken cheekbone. He got closer to gone than anybody in that department wants in a report. And out on the lot, when Gray Truitt turned to watch him go, the crutch tip went into the mud at the edge of the slab. He came down on his left side on the concrete. The surgical site opened. He was back in the operating room that afternoon for 4 hours. The nerve that survived the storm and the cold and 9 hours on a basement floor did not survive the fall. That is the price this story charges. Gray Truitt has a foot that does not lift. He cannot work a clutch or get up on the deck of a wrecker. He sold the truck in February to a service in Nevada, Missouri. "You want a minute with it?" the buyer said. "I've had 21 years of minutes. Go on." He stood in the lot and watched a man he did not know drive it out. Bo Hollister was charged with assault in the 1st degree, forgery, tampering with a utility service, and insurance fraud. He pleaded on the 9th of June to assault and forgery and took 18 years. Wyatt Truitt read a statement at sentencing. It was 60 words on notebook paper, and his sister keeps it in a drawer. "You taught me to back a trailer. You were nice to me the whole time. I don't understand how both of those are true. My dad says a person can be 2 things. I think you were only ever one thing, and you were good at hiding it. I hope you learned to knock on doors." Then he sat down and put his hands under his legs. At his turn, Bo Hollister read a statement about a backhoe in 1997. He asked the court to understand that he had never laid a hand on anybody. The judge let him finish. Then she said one sentence before she pronounced, "Mr. Hollister, the state does not require you to touch a man to be the reason he is on the floor." The teller surrendered her commission and testified. She sends Gray Truitt a card every November. He has never opened one and never thrown one away. Neely Truitt got a written reprimand for holding an open line at a public safety console and 6 months off the radio. She took it without argument because she had read the rule and broken it. She went back on in June. She still works nights. On the wall above Console 8, there is a strip of tape with a time written on it in marker. 0522. It is the minute a machine outside a wrecked house wrote down that somebody had put a hand on a valve. Only 3 people in that building know what it means. The captain of the county search team put in for a transfer in January and got it. He teaches now to people who will someday stand at a tape line with a chalk stick and 31 addresses left. There's a slide in his deck with a photograph of a propane tank on it and a white band across the steel about knee-high. He does not tell them the story. He tells them to put a hand on it. He wrote Gray Truitt a letter in March. Gray answered in 4 lines, and one of them was, "You had 71 houses and one of me." Ida Shockley retired in the fall. The cooperative gave her a jacket. She keeps the root cards in a shoebox because she trusts a shoebox as much as a tablet. Truitt Recovery still holds the Verlin County rotation. There's a driver now, a young man from Butler with a temper he is working on. There's a base radio on a card table in a rebuilt front room on Culver Road. Behind it, at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning, sits a man with a foot that does not lift. He answers on the first ring. He has never let one go to 2. Wyatt is 13. He rides along on the calls that are not bad ones, and he has learned to hold a flashlight where it is useful. The new tank sits where a man at a card table can see it out the front window. "Dad?" "Go ahead." "Why'd you have them set it there?" He did not answer for about a week. Then he did at 3 in the morning with the radio quiet. "Because it kept me company," he said, "and nobody ever thanked it." "That's weird." "It is." "Are you going to say the real reason?" He looked out the window a while. "So if I'm ever down somewhere again," he said, "there's a thing on this property that's already keeping count." "I'd count." "I know you would. That's why I put it where you walk past it." On the 4th of March at 1:40 in the morning, the radio put out a call for a truck at a rollover on the county line. Gray Truitt keyed the mic. The deputy on scene said the words that cross a radio 100 times a year in a county like that one. "Vehicle's empty. Nobody's inside." I checked, and Gray Truitt sat in a folding chair with a tank keeping count in the dark outside his window. He held the button down and said the only 2 words he has ever asked anybody for. "Check anyway." Doing nothing left a fingerprint after all. 9 hours of one, in a tank in the dark, on a page nobody in that county ever bothered to print. The call comes when it comes. You go anyway. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done the moment he said nobody's inside. And if this one got to you, send it to whoever in your life still gets up at 3 in the morning when the phone rings.